This is a list of shortcut hotkeys that was put together by Interlink Engineering. They provide engineering services in the Phoenix area and host the Solidworks users group. So the control keys we went through. You can try out the space bar, the control space bar. Take a screen snapshot, so capture whatever's on the screen, put it on the clipboard, and then you can paste it into Paint or into one of the any of the graphics programs. Z to zoom out, Shift Z to zoom in, and F to fit. We're seeing some of these hotkeys probably more on the right mouse button or in some of the shortcuts. G is a magnifying glass that will zoom in on the area, but just in kind of around, so we'll take a look at that one. The arrow keys, so the keyboard arrows, up, down, left, right, will rotate in 15-degree increments. Shifting and the arrow will give you 90-degree increments. We did the control middle mouse button and alt middle mouse button to pan and to roll. You can also do those with the arrows. The general file operations, Control N is new file, Control Open, Control S save. Recommend you do that one quite often. Standard Windows, Control Z undo, Control X cut, Control C copy, Control V paste. Let's see, probably just recognize a few of those. And then I guess would say be careful of some of the hide show the display, hide show the feature manager, F9, hide show all active toolbars, scrolling to the top of the feature tree, scrolling to the bottom of the feature tree, home and end. The quick rebuild, so Control B and Control Q. Control Q will force a complete rebuild of every sketch, every feature within the model. And then delete on the keyboard to delete. And yeah, I kind of jumped over to Control 8, but Control Print or P for the print file. So take a look at those. Above that in the canvas, these are some of the locations. We'll get to these, but be aware that they're there. And then when we get to the threads and the threading, these are the formulas that work with the threads. Right. So on the units, I think we talked about this in one of the previous videos, but typically machinists will work in thousandths of an inch, so 3/4 of an inch is 750 thousandths, but it kind of varies depending on conversation tech. But tenths usually comes into tenths of a thousandth, so we don't use tenths, hundredths. And then kind of the same with the metric system is depending on your industry, you might do centimeters, but there again I have to convert to millimeters because I think in millimeters. And then if you're in the really small stuff in the semiconductor and some of the other industries, you'll be talking in microns, which is 10 to the minus 6. So familiarizing yourself with a few of the fractions. Always recommend that you should be comfortable with quarters, eighths, sixteenths, the 30 seconds and the 64ths, a few of those, so like 3/30 seconds comes to mind. There's just a handful that get used regularly, and the patterns repeat, so you'll see the 3-1-2-5, the 1-5-6, those will recur throughout the 0 to 1 inch in those increments. So let's take a look at P1-4, and I'm going to stay with the contour and region. This time I'm not going to worry about trimming. I'm just going to focus on the rectangle. We'll put the notches in the corners, and we'll draw the circles. And looking at this, it's probably not that complicated, but as we gain complexity in our parts, we're going to want to consider doing the outside shape and getting our geometry established, and then creating a separate cut feature to remove the holes. So I want to introduce the cut extrude maybe a little earlier than I've done in the past, so we will see how that goes. So File, New. This is still an inch part. So we're going to go to inch, pounds, and seconds. We'll stay in the front plane. Alright, so we were on sketch. Alright, so again I can pick sketch and then pick the front plane. Pre-selecting, I like pre-selecting. If you've watched any of the other videos, I pre-select a lot. So if you have the item staged, ready to go, then whatever function you're telling it to do is usually a little bit quicker. And then we talked about the right plane, or sorry, the front plane, and then right-clicking, and then we'll go into the sketch. So I have these icons across the top, and we can open the sketch, red origin, and I think I've mentioned this in previous videos, but I'll bring it up again, is the long leg is vertical and the right leg is horizontal. So those arrow keys, if I hold down the control button, we are panning around on the screen, and if I hold down the alt button, then we're rotating 90 degrees, and if we are just doing arrows, then this is rotating in the 3D space kind of around the origin as we go through. And we can always go back to Control 1 or whichever view is going to put us back into the view. So get familiar with those keyboard shortcuts. As you use them, as you build them into your workflow, you'll find a few that you like, and then everything else is available on a right mouse button or up on the menus. It just becomes what you're comfortable with. So our outside dimensions from the origin, find the coincident, and then I'm just dragging out some distance. Right click, and we come over to Smart Dimension, which is the same as coming up here. Watch out for the sketch numeric input. If you like to enter the values as you're adding the dimensions, that's one way to go. Let's see, I don't remember replace entity, so we'll have to look at those. There's another one in here that activates and deactivates. So let's just focus on the dimension for now, and know that there's some other icons there that can trip you up. So selecting the object, placing the dimension, opens the modify box. We go to 3.5 inches, and that gives me my 3 lines. The blue line would still be able to move up and down. We'll go with the vertical, and that is 3 inches. And then we'll either go right click and back to select, or I can go directly into the line. Alright, so this side, I just barely missed that midpoint, but I got the coincidences. Alright, so if I pick on the midpoint, I'm going to get that, and a lot of times, sometimes I will want the midpoint, but just as many times it's I'm going to be selecting around it. Alright, so we draw those corner notches in, and I'm doing the click drag. If you prefer the click click, then it would be click, let go of the left mouse button, click, and then you would be in continuous. You would click again, and then I think it's A completes the segments. Alright, so 1/2 inch, and all of these lines are 1/2 inch, so in my design intent I have to make a decision. Are all of these always going to be 1/2 inch, or can they vary if I need to make a change to the part? So this would be one of those instances that if I were to select all 3, I would be able to set them to 1/2 inch driven off of one dimension. So clicking on the first, holding down the control button, selecting the second, keep holding down the control button and select the third. And then we'll have equal on the pop-up, or we can come over to the property manager and make equal. Alright, so as far as distances, we have a distance of 2 inch from line to line and 1.5 inches from the base to the side, and then 2 inches from the bottom. Alright, so this is one option. Oh, it was 2 inches between the line. I was looking at this. Why isn't that vertical with the 2 inches? But 2 inches off the edge versus 2 inches off of the previous line. All right, so I could go ahead and put in the holes and get that started. But I said I wanted to introduce the cut feature. So we're going to build these up and start creating geometry in different combinations. So thickness is 1.125, 1/8 inches, and the contour will be this interior shape. So I mentioned previously with the contour and region, if I pick the contour, it's going to find the kind of the absolute perimeter, everything that's connected to the outside. And so then I would have a region, a region, a region, and then finally the region that I want to generate the geometry with. Then my last decision is, does it come forward of the front plane or reverse the front plane? Doesn't really matter. We just need to pick. Alright, so I did a Control-1 to bring it into to view. Actually, let's rotate that out just a little bit so we can see if the orientation to the sketch works. So I've picked a face. If I were to put the new sketch on the front plane, that would be valid. If this was to move around, it may not have the same net effect. We would like the geometry to stay tied together. So the front, top, and right plane to kind of get started, and after that, then we're going to, I think for ease and managing the orientation, it's going to be just as easy to pick on these faces. So previously we had the front plane and I didn't have any geometry. Now that I have existing geometry, I can also right-click on the face, get the in context pop-up, and then go into sketch. So quick review, if I'm on the front plane, I can right-click and open the sketch. Right now I'm in the sketch, so it says exit sketch, but we can highlight the sketch and we would get the planes. Or I can pre-select a plane, go to sketch, or if I have a face or something existing, I can right-click on and get sketch. So always have to have 2, 3, 4 ways to do anything. And it did rotate into position, and I can always hit Control-1 to get it back into the correct orientation. Alright, so circle, and circle, and circle. So I'm just clicking and dragging. The click would be click for the center point, drag out some distance, click for the diameter. So there's 2 holes at 1/2 inch. So we'll go ahead and set 0.5, and then the 1 hole is 1 inch. Alright, and then I'm going to select, hold down the control button, select the other perimeter of the circle, and make those equal. Alright, so the remaining relations will be to set the dimensions. So 1 inch from the edge, and then we'll go 0.75, so 750 thousandths, 3/4 of an inch from the base. And then from the edges again, 0.75. And from the top, 0.75. and from the edge 1.75, and from the top 1.25. So basically, process of elimination, going to go through and check off all of those dimensions, make sure they got applied. Everything goes fully defined, and when we look at the status bar now, we'll have fully defined, everything is in black. I go ahead into the features and hit extrude, and realize that I did not want to make a boss, so we're going to close. That just puts us right back into the sketch, and then we're going to come over to about the second little area here and pick Extruded Cut. And then I don't want to be tied, since these are not blind holes, meaning that they stop before it breaks through the material. We're going to take a look at the end conditions. So the end conditions would be our best choices here, through all and up to next, but we can use just about any of these to complete the geometry. So for now, just to illustrate and get us started, we're going to do through all. And if this was to change from 1 inch 125 to 10 inches 125, these holes would still find their way through the part. So we go ahead and accept, and that gives me my geometry. So we'll do the save, pick up the naming, make sure I'm not overwriting one of the previous files, save it.